Hey folks, welcome back. I'm your host, R.R. Slugger, and today we're taking a look at a toy line that I frankly have no business talking about. This is LEGO Scala, and boy is it weird. Let's start at the beginning. 1979. LEGO Scala is launched as a sort of jewelry toy for kids, using the LEGO system as a connection method. These sets feature all sorts of bizarre pieces, but to be honest, they're ultimately not that relevant today. You see, Scala was retired the following year and lay dormant until 1997. The kids who played with Scala in the 70s were full-grown adults by the time it returned. That year, the theme name was revived, albeit with a different focus. The Scala of the 90s was all about LEGO dolls and less about wearable jewelry. Personally, I don't think these two eras of Scala are all that related, other than perhaps their target demographic, of which I notably am not and never have been. Naturally, that means I'm the perfect slug for the job when it comes to reviewing these sets. That was sarcasm. The two sets I have today are 3151 Emma on the Move and 3152 Playroom for the Baby Thomas. Let's save the worst for last, so we're going to start with Emma and her dog Sniff. Emma is a Scala doll, and sports articulation slightly beyond what you'd come to expect in a competitor's product. She's no Galador figure, but I still think there's a respectable amount of posability to be found here. Her attire is all made of fabric, and this is surely one of the biggest departures that Scala takes from typical LEGO. If the goal was to make me feel like a grown man playing with a child's doll, then I'd say mission accomplished. This really does not feel like the LEGO I'm used to. Emma's dog, Sniff, is a molded piece with several print applications. Part number, Sniff, was included in two sets, both from the same year. I've gotta say, I'm a big fan of Sniff's curious expression. It's a good-looking LEGO canine. As we continue, here's a broad disclaimer. These Scala sets include a ton of rare, retiring, or set-exclusive pieces. If I pulled the car over to talk about each one, we'd be here all day. And I kinda wanna put Scala in the rearview mirror sooner rather than later. I'll point out some highlights, but you can essentially pretend that these icons are up on the screen for the entire runtime of this video. We've got to talk about the builds now, and well, look, there's no way to sugarcoat this. I don't have nice things to say about LEGO Scala. I'm gonna try to front load the negativity here so that I can focus on the positives later, but please believe me when I say that you are not missing out on much by missing out on Scala. It's pretty rough. From the outside looking in, I figured the defining feature of LEGO Scala was going to be its dolls. However, upon experiencing these sets firsthand, I've come to learn that it's actually Scala's insane over-reliance on foam pieces that truly defines this theme for me. By the looks of it, Scala's relaunch in 1997 showcased a much more authentic pairing of the dollhouse and LEGO concept, but by the time of the early 2000s, you really start to see the corners being cut. These foam pieces feel incredibly cheap, and I found them to be profoundly unsatisfying to build with. I'm honestly surprised at how much I didn't enjoy the build experience here. Scala gives Mars Mission a run for its money. Even when LEGO themes get weird, they rarely get uneven, but Scala manages to do both. Putting the awful foam pieces and unpleasant tactile elements aside for a minute, the wild inconsistencies in plastic quality really shocked me. Some elements are made of the tried and true LEGO ABS that we all know and love, but others feel like knockoff toy brands at best. These ski poles rival something you'd buy at a dollar store, and it baffles me why they had to be produced in an inferior plastic to the similar shaped red antenna pieces also found in the same set. I don't understand. Because of its uneven nature, Scala really fails to sell me on its concept. You can love or hate a similar weird LEGO theme like Galador, but at least Galador was internally consistent, regardless of how you feel about it. In comparison, Scala feels like a desperate mismatch of toy brands all sold within the same box. It just doesn't work for me. And to be clear, I don't think this is a girls' toy versus boys' toy thing. Belleville, and to a greater extent LEGO Friends, both knock it out of the park with the execution of their concepts. Belleville does a much better job of integrating fabric textiles into the world of LEGO, and Friends is frankly one of the best LEGO themes to ever exist. Top 10 for sure, the quality is undeniable. So, unfortunately, Scala just fails to measure up in my eyes. My experience with the theme is admittedly small, but I certainly don't plan on expanding it anytime soon, given what I saw here. Similar to my experience with Mars Mission, I gave it a shot, didn't like what I saw, and have no intention of exploring it further. You know it's bad if Slugger's pulling out the Mars Mission comparisons, eh? I wish I didn't have to be such a downer, but I don't want to lie and say that I think Scala is some misunderstood gem or something. I think it's pretty rocky the whole way through, so strap in. In an attempt to get things back on track, let's look at the main build of Emma on the Move. This sled features all sorts of interesting parts and colors, but what it lacks is a source of locomotion. I had originally assumed that Sniff would fill a sled dog role, but it looks like they're content to just slide along in this foam bucket in the rear. Does Emma have to push this whole contraption up a hill and slide down the other side like a toboggan? Who knows? She's come prepared with a lot of supplies though. Her compass, cup, and what I assume to be thermos are the highlights for sure, but Emma certainly didn't skimp on bringing beauty products as well. It would seem that she's a glamping pioneer, and if I have to know what that word means, so do you. The sled itself is constructed from some unfamiliar molds, and I'd like to make mention of one in particular. Part 6941 has a strange bench-like shape to it, but it also gives us a great example of the Scala studs on top. This flower pattern interlocks with standard LEGO elements without the use of traditional studs, and it begs the question, why? Why design a new connection method that doesn't do anything notably different than the one it's replacing? Doesn't that just make these new molds inherently less useful? If you want my opinion, yes. Emphatically yes. Aside from one massive exception that can be found in life on Mars, the pieces that utilized Scala studs lived and died with the theme they were created for. I think this more or less proves their lack of versatility and the crossover friction caused by their bizarre choice to reinvent the wheel. Sadly, there really isn't much more to talk about with Emma on the Move. Part of the difficulty in discussing these Scala sets is that it's tough to define where the LEGO ends and the foam-constructed nonsense begins. Our next set, Playroom for the Baby Thomas, is mostly the latter. Where do I even start with this one? I guess I'll try to avoid talking about the set for as long as I can, and instead pivot to the little magazines included in each one. These provide fun pictures and ideas of how to play with your set beyond the limits of what's included in the box. For example, the magazine included with Emma and Sniff shows us how to make a tent out of paper, or how to braid Emma's hair. The magazine included with Baby Thomas shows us... What? Are we sure this didn't come out in the late 70s? Oh my slug, it even includes a cardboard Native American headdress to punch out and dress the baby up to play cowboys and Indians. What on earth were they thinking? Well, at least we got the bad out of the way so we can focus on, oh wait, just kidding, this set is terrible. Not only does it feature a foam-fueled nightmare world, not only does it contain the same cheap plastic parts I complained about in the last set, but it also features an entirely different proprietary connection system. Just look at how these shelves interlock. Gee, if only we had access to a connection system with decades of design and refinement behind it. What company owns that? Oh, we own that? Then we must be sluggin' stupid. I've read that some LEGO designers were somewhat ashamed of the theme Jack Stone in retrospect, but let me tell you, Jack Stone's got nothing on this. Scala is much more deserving of your shame. Jack Stone was too busy being a competent toy line for kids to get wrapped up in this problematic foam fiesta. Playroom for the Baby Thomas sets a new low for me. This is, without a doubt, the worst product I've purchased that bears the name LEGO on the box. Half of the time you're muddling with finicky foam frustration, and the other half you're assembling things using non-system construction methods. Why call this LEGO if it wants to be anything but? Best I can say is watch for these strange Scala pieces in my future mocks, because that's about all I can salvage from this excursion. I didn't expect to find Scala to be so off-putting, but it's a far cry from its closest relative in Belleville. Steer clear, folks. Steer clear. Whew! Got that out of my system. Let's hope that's the end of the suffering of Slug 2026. This video was brought to you by the folks who support me during the suffering, especially those subscribed to my Only Slugs tier on Patreon. Folks like Lore Escape, who has a YouTube channel centered around the characters and narratives surrounding old LEGO themes. Their video on the other Time Cruisers board game is a must-watch for fans of that series. I'll link it at the end. Slugger, who has a massive collection of 90s era LEGO and has been generous enough to lend it out to other LEGO YouTubers in the past. If you've watched Kelton Davis's videos before, you've definitely seen some of Slugger's collection at play. Ryan Emma, who brought a 2x4 red power brick like the one found on LEGO Island all the way down to Antarctica and back. That's quite the journey, but I'd imagine the Infomaniac is thankful to have that power brick back again. Jane Bricks Toronto, who is a trans fan of LEGO on a mission to introduce their local LEGO users group to the world of Rock Raiders. I know of no nobler quest, and I wish you all the high adventure deep underground you desire. Lord Atlan, who is a part of a team working on a Bionicle-themed tabletop RPG called Doranai Nui. The end goal is to make everything in Bionicle's canon playable, and it sounds like it's going well so far. You can check it out at redstargames.org. Tryhard Central, who, as of writing, is still on the hunt for the Tahu CMF, and tells me they're too stubborn to buy it secondhand. Who knew that collecting Bionicle masks would ever be a thing again? I wish you luck on your mission. Mason, who has been learning to play guitar this summer. As a music teacher who teaches all ages, I personally have so much respect for adults who take the time to learn an instrument. Stick with it, and don't get discouraged if you aren't progressing as fast as you'd like. Adults can be so impatient sometimes. And lastly, Ambleon's Door, who has asked me to recite as much of the script of LEGO Clutch Powers the movie as I remember. Well, several sessions of psychoshock therapy have exercised that film from my memory. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't even heard of I Work Alone. Back to therapy. These folks and many more deserve our thanks for making the Summer of Slug a reality. If you'd like to pitch in and show your support, the links are in the video description. I've been your host, RR Slugger, and I'll see you next time for another video.